Well, hello. This is a Doctor of Digital talking about Ensemble. So I'm going to continue on with the creative writing series, particularly talking about a screenplay and how to improve your work. Now, all this is based, of course, on the novel Burning America in the Best Interest of the Children, because we're also going to be talking about that as a screenplay as well. So for this particular way, I've got the 15 ways of creative writing. And now we've got talking about ensembles. And so I want to introduce and talk about one of the best ensemble pieces ever. And that is a great story. And it's something that people find very interesting. And I think it's a really good movie as well. So let's talk about that. This is Way 13, Ensemble Characters in Dramas. So you started the process of getting into the minds of your characters. Now we're going to take a moment to offer some options to introduce those characters well in the opening of your soon-to-be screenplay. I tend to favor films that have multiple plot and storylines, multiple characters, and ensemble pieces. That's a quote from Spike Lee. Topic: How to introduce ensemble characters in dramas. Lesson: Dramas are unique because they require full focus on story and characters from the opening pages, as opposed to genres such as action, thriller, comedy, science fiction, and horror, which can utilize action, thrills, laughs, tech, and scares to get the story and characters moving forward in those opening moments. Dramas don't have that buffer. So, if you have multiple characters in your drama concept, how can you introduce your characters in an engaging manner for the reader without spending too many pages explaining the backstory? So, when I took Burning America, a long novel, I got to scrunch it into a smaller screenplay. I get it. So, I'm going to try to explain that because this is something which is vital for the success of any drama written on spec or under the speculation that you will be selling it to someone. This is a great tool to have as a drama screenwriters. So I'm going to be using the Oscar-nominated ensemble drama, The Big Chill, as the perfect example of how to do just that. And as a bonus, DM me because I have the opening to The Big Chill so that you can see it illustrated on the big screen. So now that you've got an idea of the movie, and hopefully you can take a look at that opening for yourself, I'm going to break it down piece by piece. What's the setup? A group of former college friends react to the news of the death of one of their friends and prepare to attend his funeral. How many characters are in this opening sequence? 8. Sarah and Harold Cooper, Glenn Close and Kevin Kline, Karen Bowens, Jo Beth Williams, Michael Gold, Jeff Goldblum, Meg Jones, Mary Kay Place, Sam Weber, Tom Berenger, Chloe, Meg Tilly, and Nick Carlton, William Hurt. How does the opening sequence start? The film begins with a cute moment between Harold Cooper and his son. As Harold gives his son a bath while they sing some classic rock from the 60s, the phone rings. His wife Sarah answers it off screen. Harold suddenly looks up to see Sarah standing at the bathroom doorway crying. The next shot we see is a body being prepared for a funeral. How is each character introduced? Each of them is introduced in a moment of clear reflection and reaction to the intercut visuals of a body being prepared for a funeral. What do we learn about these characters during these brief moments? We learn just enough of each of them to set up the events to come without having to go into major backstories, scenes, and dialogue. Only Harold is offered any dialogue to work from in his introduction. Everything else is void of any dialogue and strictly driven by visuals. Now, what do we learn about each character in these brief visuals? Harold, what's his moment of characterization? He's giving his toddler son a bath. What does this tell us about the character? The interaction between Harold and his son showcases that he's a family man, funny and charming. How is this used for drama later? He's later shown as the natural leader of the group of college friends. The quality of being a family man are those that most of the rest of the group clearly admire, and because he's funny, charming, and overall charismatic, that natural leadership plays throughout the whole film. Beyond that, His display of being an excellent father plays into the storyline of Meg wanting to find the right man to father her children, mixed in with the fact that Harold's wife Sarah had cheated on him years before with the very friend that has just died. Sarah, what's her moment of characterization? She answers a phone call in the background as her husband Harold is giving their son a bath and then appears at the doorway with tears in her eyes. What does this tell us about the character? Compared to the other 8 characters introduced, Sarah showcases the most emotional reaction with tears and a truly sorrow filled face. How is this used for drama later? Throughout the film, Sarah continues to have the most emotional moments and responses in regard to their friend's death. We later learn in subtle fashion that Sarah had an affair with their now deceased friend years earlier. Harold and Sarah have moved on past that and are now clearly happily married. But Sarah is still struggling the most with their friend's death, which means there are still feelings. Karen, what's her moment of characterization? She sits in a kitchen sipping coffee with a sad gaze. What does this tell us about the character? The visuals in this scene tell us that she's a well put together suburban housewife. The nice clothes and the top of the line kitchen show us that she's upper class as well. How is this used for drama later? We see her at the funeral. One of the other characters, Sam, waves to her with a smile that has a hint of flirtation to it. They have a pass. She reluctantly smiles back as she sits back in the pew, revealing her equally well put together husband. We soon learn that she's a true suburban wife and mother with a successful husband, but she's bored with that life and later rebels with a one-night stand with her former flame, Sam. Michael, what's his moment of characterization? He's in his study, frustratingly searching for something as his wife or girlfriend comes in to console him. What does this tell us about the character? We see that he's clearly an educated man with many, many books and papers found around him in his study. He's wearing glasses, and we see a typewriter, giving him an extra sense of intelligence and sophistication. How is this used for drama later? We learn that he's a writer for People magazine, but has always wanted to tackle his own novel as well. Throughout the film, he overanalyzes everything and everyone. We also learn something despicable about him because at first we see him with this clearly loving, caring, and consoling wife or girlfriend, only to watch as he tries his best to get laid while he and his friends spend the weekend together. Meg, what's her moment of characterization? She packs her business briefcase, smokes a cigarette, and gazes out of her high rise office window. What does this tell us about the character? First and foremost, she's a feisty one, as most business women of that era in the 80s needed to be. She's professional, successful, tough, yet there's a longing about her which is physically evident as she stares out of her window while smoking. How is this used for drama later? We learn that she's longing to have a child and doesn't care who the father is. Sure, she's a successful lawyer, but there's something missing. She looks at her friend Sarah and sees the excellent mother that she'd like to be. Sam, what's his moment of characterization? He's sitting in first class drinking and reflecting as a stewardess, as they were called back in the 80s, begins to speak with him and then shows Sam a copy of the magazine that he is on the cover of. He then asks for another drink. What does this tell us about his character? Despite the fact that he's clearly a successful actor and celebrity, Sam displays reluctance and is almost embarrassed by the magazine cover. Even when the stewardess is clearly talking his ear off, starstruck, he gazes up at her not with arrogance, but utter disdain. How is this used in the drama later? We learn that Sam is embarrassed by his celebrity status when his friends rush into a room to watch the show that he stars in. When he's asked to perform a stunt that is a staple of the show and his television character, he fails miserably. We then learn that he doesn't feel that anyone is genuine to him anymore until the fateful weekend when he's reunited with his best friends from college. Chloe, what's her moment of characterization? She stares into nothing as she slowly and almost seductively stretches in a revealing outfit. What does this tell us about the character? First off, she's much younger looking than the rest, so we know that she's likely not a direct member of the group. Her gaze denotes sadness, and her stretching and physical stature showcases utter sex appeal. While this may at first seem superficial as far as showcasing her character, these elements play a large part into the eventual story. How is this used for drama later? Chloe becomes the focus of desire for two of the other characters, Michael and Nick, but the desires between the two are entirely different. Michael is almost obsessed with her sexuality, while Nick is drawn to her innocence and her admiration as she sees a lot of her deceased boyfriend, the friend that has died, in Nick. Nick, what's his moment of characterization? We only catch a glimpse of his face. However, his actions speak louder than anything as we follow his hand, taking out a collection of pills and pouring them onto the passenger seat of his Porsche. His hand chooses some pills and tosses them into his mouth as he suddenly speeds off. What does this tell us about the character? He's a drug user that is clearly one that lives on the edge, but he has a coolness about him as well with his shades, Porsche, and fast lifestyle. How is this used for drama later? Nick escapes life through his drug use and is slowly going down the same path that his late friend did. Alex, the body. What's his moment of characterization? The character introduced is interspersed with what at first we believe is a man getting dressed. With each visual, we learn that it is clearly a body being prepared for a funeral. What does this tell us about the character? The last shot shocks us as we see that the person being prepared for a funeral died from suicide. The tragedy of death is multiplied by the way in which the death occurred. We know that this character, whose face is never seen, was struggling with something in his life. How is this used for drama later? With the friends that are mourning are gathering together for a funeral, followed by a weekend stay in a house together, we learn much more about this character and how he affected the lives of others. Each of the friends struggled with questions of why he killed himself and why he didn't ask any of them for help. The visuals presented in this opening give us a taste into each of the characters' lives. We don't need a 3-page in-scene introduction for each one of them, which in this case would amount to a whopping 24 pages of character introduction. Instead, only a quarter to half a page is needed to introduce an ensemble of characters with a purely drama-driven story. Later in the film, after the funeral, when each of the characters are unpacking their luggage and getting settled into the house for the weekend, another visual montage is played that adds to each of these opening introductions, solidifying the character elements introduced in the opening moments of the film. When you are writing dramas or dramedies, you need to remember that in order to capture the attention of readers and keep them engaged in the stories, you have to be able to employ similar tricks of the trade used in other genres, introducing characters quickly and then revealing more of them as the story goes on is the secret to a successful dramatic story. Avoid the trap of lengthy character background scenes and introductions, and you have a well-paced opening that readers can enjoy. Assignment: take a look at the drama concept and all of the development materials you've created, and begin to envision how you are going to open up this screenplay and introduce your characters in an engaging way. Take some time to write down some bullet points, each of which showcase a scene description or visual, much like we did for breaking down the trailer for The Power of the Dog. Once you've done, continue to keep those visuals in mind and play them over and over again in your head as you edit and add them through your mind's eye. We'll see you for the next way. Hope you enjoyed this, and it has to do with a great story, and it has to do with one that can really tell a lot because what you're able to do is with an ensemble cast, introduce them And this is one of the most effective ever done. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, make sure you DM me for that opening scene where I can show you and illustrate all the things that I've talked about. In any case, make sure you also check out Burning America in the Best Interest of the Children. And if you have not DM'd me yet, make sure you get a hold of the 12 Stages of the Hero's Journey worksheet, which will help structure your stories. Until next time and the next way, this is the Doctor of Digital signing out. Deus Volt.